Whoa! It's Wulzy. Yes, I accidentally recorded the first part of this video after stream with my sub count at the top right. Welcome back to another Geometry Dash building video. Now I have something really cool to do today. I'm gonna go back to my roots. You may know, in early to mid 2.1, I used to be a very active effect creator. And when I heard this super raw Zorbrak song on Newgrounds, I knew I had to go and make a traditional old-fashioned effect level. I'm gonna be using new techniques, but I'm gonna do it completely in an old style. So let's just go ahead and just remove our ground here. We're just going to be floating in midair right there. I'm probably going to turn off preview mode and I'm going to build a very thin line. I'm thinking of actually just using these tiny little glow objects and thinning them down and stretching them out like this. That way, with just two objects, I can link this together, give it a group, and lock it to the x-axis like so. Just using that advanced follow trigger on group number 1, which I should put in here. I'm going to set the level to mini and we're just going to jump a couple of times over some spikes. Gonna make this super simplistic with just very small objects here. I'm just gonna use some very small details underneath some of the spikes like these. And we have our details on the ground right there. Cool. You see how the spikes are kind of fading off at the edges of the screen? To stop that from happening, I'm just gonna select these objects and put don't fade, don't enter. I'm also going to turn off the natural glow that these objects have and set them to black, because now what we're going to do is we're going to go to a new layer and set up a new gradient, which is going to be very similarly stretched, but it's going to be taller. It's going to go behind the level and it's going to have a new color, which I'm going to make pink for now. So now you can see that there is a black line on the ground and then we have some glow behind. Set this to blending so that when I copy paste and then just scale down, I can start to hue shift and there's going to be a really cool blend of these colors. Look how it looks when I turn this off right here. Really ugly. So let's make sure blending is turned on and let's just change this to look super nice. I don't even desaturated in the middle so it goes brighter. I think overall this is going to be a little bit thinner. Yeah, this looks great. So I'm going to move this beam up a bit so it doesn't show any of the line. I'm going to give it group number 2 and we're going to set this to be invisible at first using an alpha trigger like this. Then I'm going to create a loop. I'm going to start off with an alpha trigger that's going to have a very short fade time up to full opacity. And right as that's about to peak, let me just turn on the effect line so you can see. I'm going to line up this blue line with the very edge of that duration line. We're going to start fading it back down. It's all about timing here, making sure that this is as climactic as it can possibly be. So now these triggers are going to make a flash. What I want to do is make it so I can activate this flash whenever I want. So I'm going to give these triggers group number 3, set them to spawn and multi-trigger, and then I'm going to create a spawn trigger right here with spawn ordered available. That's going to set off group number 3. So now every time I place this spawn, for example, right over here, both of those triggers will get activated. What's cool about spawn ordering is that I can place a spawn trigger, let's just say right here on this music line here. And as long as it's part of this loop, like the group number 3 stuff, I can set it to activate itself, basically. So now, this set of triggers will set this pulse to go on forever. And it's going to lock with me, because I gave it group number 1, remember? Now what I want to do is pass this glow beam underneath the same blocks that I used. So I'm going to move this down 40. It's going to go ease in out. I'm going to say 0.5. And I want it to pass through very smoothly. This isn't the right easing for me, so you can see the blocks. I might want to move it a bit closer and then move it less overall. There's going to be a second trigger right here that lines it up. It's not fast enough. It needs to be slightly more punchy, I think. So let's just make it 0.3 instead. I'm going to keep testing it like this. That looks decent to me. So I just have to loop these two triggers now, and that's going to be done the exact same way, giving it group number 4, making sure these are both spawn, multi-triggered, activating this loop right here, and then placing the spawn a double distance away just to make sure that this beam will always move up and down. I'm going to zoom in a lot, which is going to be very helpful here. So let's just put in 1.2. It's going to make the screen feel a bit more full, like this. Now all I have to do is continue copy-pasting these objects, and we have a pretty solid beginning part to this level. I'm just going to fill the level with basic concepts like this. To spice up the level and just make it a little bit more fresh, I'm considering just making pulses on 1 second fade times for color channel number 2. That change its hue slightly and also probably the brightness so that we get extra color changes like that make it go more orange at times, or I don't know, maybe backwards to like -60 so we get more of like a pink. Let's have a look here. It should go purplish. Yeah, that's so sick. Of course, I will be spawn ordering this like so. Slap that group on the spawn and we should see that these colors continuously go back and forth, making it more orange and more purple, even though we have no more triggers in the distance, as you can see. I just love spawn ordering stuff in 2.2. I also may add a zoom trigger that's just going to make it go to 1.5 over time in like 15 seconds with a sign in out. that's just gonna slowly intensify this whole thing and make it consume more of the screen. One more thing, I'm gonna set up a gradient right here that's gonna have a new color channel on it. There's just going to be purple on both sides like this, the base and detail, except one side is going to have no brightness. So it's just going to be intensifying the bottom of the screen. It's going to be additive and it's going to go over the top of the level. And this thing is going to fade on as the level moves forward, but not to a very high opacity. We're just going to set it to 0 opacity at the start and then fade it on to maybe like a 30 at max over like 15 seconds. And that's just going to add like an extra little layer over the top. It's just going to make the level tint a little bit more. You see? Right there, it's just adding a little bit of purple to the bottom. I might even add a slight bit to the top with a different shade, but I think this is looking great. This is probably going to be the most playtest heavy part of the video, but I'm going to set up a time warp just for when the song slows down. Right there. Kind of want to just start putting time warps that slows it down bit by bit. I've manually placed all 4 of these. It goes 0.95, then 0.9, then 0.85, and then it jumps to 0.75. And you'll see that the line starts slowing down between each one. So everything still should be in sync here. Yeah, this is good, and we can do something with the gradient where it goes up in opacity just to make extra use of that. If we make it go to full opacity, this should be a pretty solid change that is going to spice up the level here. What I've decided to do is fade it completely out and then rotate by 180 degrees so that the object will be the opposite way around. You see this gradient will be on the ceiling this time. So bottom, top, bottom. You know what? I'm going to fade out the entire level to transition. Let's just go group number 7. Just fade off. I don't know. This is going to be so raw. Let's just see right here. Nice. Okay, this should work. I don't really want to fade off the gradient though. I feel like that's keeping the level intact. So let's just grab this thing, make sure it's not on 7, start to finish. We have this very intense little jumping section and the camera is just going to slowly zoom in. The level's getting more purple. The colors are changing by themselves. Everything is working itself out. We've barely used any objects here. And then we have the level slowing down, which is so fire in my opinion. After we jump this spike, I'm going to place down an options trigger and just disable the controls real quick. There's going to be a jump pad right here that's going to fade on. So we're just going to give it group number 8. And that's going to be an uncontrollable little thing that you can't jump over or anything. Let's just make sure it's invisible at first, just like this, with a trigger that just goes over here somewhere. So you go through, and then this thing appears, and you go into a new section. So let's just go and test that out. For some reason, effect levels used to love putting invisible portals in, so I've done that. And then I have this ball section that's going to zoom the camera back out to normal. I'm going to try and gradually put the time warp back to normal just by skipping by 0.05 every second frame. I don't know if that's going to be good. Maybe every 3rd frame just to be safe. Okay, this might be a little bit overdone, but I have the time warp that switches it back to normal. Then we could just fade on a background or something. I don't know. These levels used to love just using black objects with really simple gameplay. Probably going to set that up right here, but I'm going to put some glow behind that's going to have an area effect on it. This wasn't a thing back in the day, but I want to put some purple glow on a group like number 9 that's going to fade from 0 opacity onto full as I'm getting there at a pretty close range, like maybe 6 blocks close to me. So let's just set that up so that the glow will kind of illuminate the blocks like that. I'm simply just going to copy paste the block like this around the level. The sight reading is pretty bad though with a lot of blocks up close. So I'm going to set this to maybe 9 blocks instead. And I'm also going to make it on the X and Y so that the objects at the bottom don't become as visible. Like right there. This looks really nice. It's like a searchlight almost. I'm also going to put this pad on that same group so that you see it coming at the same time you see the rest of the glow. And yeah, this is pretty much going to do for my block design in this section. I'll probably make more creative details on top of the structures. An object like this will be pretty cool, just sitting at the bottom, and I can put that on black and it's kind of hidden. Actually, the chain looks better, so let's just get rid of the gears and we can just keep it super simple. Let's test out this transition in full. We have the slow-mo. Just want to make sure everything is really clean here. Ooh, we could definitely introduce that portal a little bit better. And I forgot to re-enable the controls. That's kind of tough. I definitely should have remembered to do that. So let's just disable... turn off the disabled controls. Let's remember that the camera zoomed in for this ball portal. So what we should do is actually hide this one and make a much smaller version underneath, or actually above, that's going to be completely visible. I'm probably going to make use of that area fade. So that was on group number 9. We just need to apply that to the new portals that we placed that are much smaller, and we should be good. Everything in this level should be no effect. We want this to be super simple. Probably going to double up this pad too. Okay, here we go. Next section. Transition. Awesome. And then we're going to have a background that moves on. But this is very clean so far for the blocks. I'm going to use the same glow for these orbs, which is going to be scaled up a little bit larger because they are bigger. Just make sure this is all on group number 9. We need to make sure everything uses this effect. Yeah. Kind of just copy pasting this section because I think it looks cool. And then we can lead on to somewhere else. We don't need this block up here. What's really nice about this structure is I can just copy paste and flip the entire thing and it'll work. Kind of just going with pattern-based gameplay at this point because it's easy and fun to make. I think it actually works better if you flip the gravity a little bit. So we have this little pattern here. I'm gonna do something with the borders here and just make a little snake. And we can put a little saw blades in here. This is so goofy. Okay, just before I playtest, don't fade, don't enter, no effects, no glow, no particle, no anything. This is how the gameplay is gonna work. So we switch out with a slow motion transition, and we have this little ball transition. I should probably turn particles back on because it's a little bit eerie having none. But yeah, we got to put a background in, but the blocks are looking very smooth. This is very typical of what an effect level might have done with the blocks back in the day. But this time it's using an area fade trigger, which is really cool. I think I did some good stuff with the gameplay, except I messed it up. Just placing down chains underneath some of these blocks. I also put glow behind the saw blades so you can see them a bit better, and that definitely helps. Let's make sure all of these objects are on something like B1. So I have plenty of room in the background to do things. I'm actually going to leave this gradient on about 10%, just so there's a slight kick at the bottom. I'm going to set up a background now. I'm going to go with a center point right here with a star. That's going to be group number 10. Then I'm going to continue the pattern of double stacking some glow. So let's just go with color channel number 3 here. We can copy paste and make another glow ball on the inside that's maybe half the size. It's gonna have less saturation, so it brightens itself up in the middle like this, and I'm gonna hue it towards I didn't think about this. I want it to be more pink in the center, I think. This should do. I'm gonna link this together, give it another group, which is gonna be number 11. Then I'm gonna half space down and go with 12. I'm gonna keep going towards the outside of the screen. This is an effect I've used for a very long time, but we're gonna do a couple of neat little things to make it more original. I'm gonna start rotating, starting with the top object around this star. So this is group number 10 as the center. Our first object was number 11. So let's go target 11, center 10. We're gonna choose a number of degrees. I'm gonna say just like 1,000 because this is gonna be over 15 seconds. And every time I copy paste, I'm just adding an extra 100 degrees with the next group number. Like so. Just going from 1300, 1400. Next group. Okay, I got all my rotation triggers set up, and now it's going to start making a curve, as you can see. I've put it in a good place. I've locked it to the player's X position infinitely with -1 seconds, and I've also locked it 50% to the camera. So if we go super high up the screen, this thing should follow us a little bit up there. See how it's kind of levitated? I'm going to hide the center point like this. Give all of the other objects a new group 32. I'm going to do some scaling effects with that number 32. The center was 10. I'm going to start collectively scaling this whole thing up and down. I'm going to manually do this. I could loop it, but I want to customize the numbers a bit more. Just making it so this background collectively gets bigger and smaller, and this spiral is moving across the screen like that. But when it's too big, you can't see the particles around the outside, so I really got to think about this. To add to it even further, we're going to do a scaling loop with some negative scales. If you don't know what that does, essentially, if I just put group number 11 with no center, that's going to make group number 11, which, let's just say, is this object right here. It's going to make it scale on itself like this, instead of being part of the group. If I do a -2 scale, it's going to flip like that. I'm thinking of what I'm going to do is making it a 1.1 negative scale on the X and Y, and that's going to go one group at a time in a loop like this. Probably going to test this real quick just to see. These objects are now going to flip, which looks so sick. Going to spawn, multi-trigger, and spawn order this entire loop. So let's just go right here. Number 33 is going to be spawn ordered, and then just right here, we're going to reset the loop because that's when the first scale ends. We just have to reactivate a self-activating spawn trigger at the end, and now this thing should be looping like that. And it's almost synced. Okay, so I changed it to an exponential in-out on 2 seconds with the exact same timing, and this actually works out pretty well. It's just a shame that not more of the spiral is visible more often. I kind of messed up my loop for how things scale. And it definitely seems like these are getting way too big. Holy cow! Yeah, I'm gonna have to redo this whole thing. Okay, these are the numbers I've chosen for my next loop. It's a 1.5 multiplication, 2.2 division, which is quite big. And then we go 1.8 multiplication, 1.6 division. So we're kind of keeping it small. I think the divisions end up being a lot more powerful than the multiplications. And I think the last division is going to be what I keep. Instead of making the effect massive, we can just do a super long scale down. Also could do a movement out, like a little bit longer than the duration, but we can just move it down, like, I don't know, 90? Okay, let's see how this works. I just want to see if the movement out is a little more fancy. There we go. That works. Sure, whatever. I can probably fade it off at the same time just to make it a little bit more justified, because it kind of just looks like it disappears, but I can give it a bit more of a resignation. We have to fix this transition in. I think that's going to be super easy, though. Right here, we're going to have to scale this all on. I'm just going to do a multiplication of 100. That's going to be super sharp. So let's just do like an ease out, like a 0.2. We toggle this on at the same time, like this. Then we kind of have to do the opposite earlier to make the transition actually set up. So we toggle 31, and then we just grab this trigger and just set it to be a 100 divide, and that can be 0 seconds long. So we shouldn't see it, and then all of a sudden we should see it toggle on and scale on like that. Sure, I'm gonna take all the glow in the level and give it a group as well. So let's just go with number 34. We're gonna make a pulsing pattern starting with group number 11, which is going to hue it plus 60. Let's just make a pretty quick fading pattern. Probably going to desaturate it a little bit just so I can go a bit brighter. I'm just going to copy paste and go up every single group, and we'll just do a slight little rotation to spread the triggers apart. Okay, so 30, and then we go to 34 at the very end. I'm going to grab this whole thing. I'm going to rotate it slightly, and then let's do the spawn ordered effect. Spread it out quite a bit, actually. I want the pulses to start right here before the whole thing ends. I think I want to shift the hue further. I think this pink is kind of boring. Or I just add color triggers that set color channel number 3 to go more pink. Let's do that. We can do a slightly longer one that makes it go back to normal. Yeah, this is going more red and orange. Okay, here we go. Let's make sure the transition works perfectly. And then we have the color change that kind of goes a little bit early, but it's okay. We have this spiral, which is using a bunch of different scale effects. And we have the color loop on it too. I think this looks really cool. Could probably stick a little particle very subtly in the background there. This feels like a very one-dimensional part that uses the background a lot. I might even put the arrows that a lot of levels used. Just objects like these with arrows on top that pulse, that are just going to be black. Maybe even we'll copy paste to the right and then add the original color behind. Something like that would be pretty neat. I want to make star particles just very small. Maybe have a little bit of spin. We need more of them like that. This is going to fill up the background a little bit. We're just going to warp this thing to be a bit larger. Use the object color, and this thing can just be the same as everything else with this little hue change. Let's make sure we add this to group number 31, B5, and it should be good here. They could move slightly. It's adding stuff to the background, which I really like. I'll probably change the moving group on it to 36 and then add a couple of these with the same camera locks, but the X is going to be like 90% instead, so we're kind of progressing past them. You see how we're progressing through the stars this time. Oh, these look like orbs, and they can just fade off at the end very simply. Okay, let's play through the first 2 parts of this level in full. I'm very happy with what we've got done. I'm glad I've managed to emulate a very old style of building where it's just full focus on the vibes and the colors. I know I haven't used the old-fashioned techniques to make them, but what I really want to do is just use the new techniques to emulate old vibes. And I think I've done a good job with like the slow motion and just using extra little effects that we wish we could have had back in the day, like the scale trigger to make these little spirals go in and out, bigger and smaller. I think this looks great. I should probably add the area fade effect to these arrows, but I kind of like the fact that they signpost the level very clearly. Everything is good. But yeah, these rotating objects should probably be a little bit darker, and they should also have the area effect, which I think is on group number 9, but I could be mistaken. I love the new select filters in the editor. I'm specifically selecting color channel number 3 of the arrows. I think that's such a cool feature. Okay, this looks a lot better. The colors are a lot more refined here. Okay, I've set up a ship portal that has the area fade effect. It has the same padding, so we have like another free mode section to follow up. And you may notice that I've put in the bottom left this timer. And my reason being is I want to see that in 2.2, is it that efficient so I can make a good enough pod in 10 minutes in the same style as before. I maybe spent like an hour and a half building this so far. We have very few objects to show for it. All right, so here we go. Let's just start the timer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a brick effect in the background. So we're going to go 0.1 off the top of the scale like this. We're going to have a white brick. It's going to be color channel number 1. I'm going to move it to the side and create a brick pattern like this. So there's a little bit of a gap in between each one. We're going to want to make sure that that's in the ground a bit. We're going to put group number 37 on a player lock, but it's going to be like 70%, just so when we play, we're going to progress past it. Let's turn off preview mode again. We should see that these bricks are we're going to go past them, and there's a little gap between, and you may see where I'm going with this, because what I want to do is layer something behind, like one of these objects. If I just warp this up to be a big circle, we can place glow behind, and it's going to illuminate parts of the bricks, which is going to be super cool. So let's do something here. We're going to go group number 38. We're going to lock that to the screen permanently. We should make them follow the camera a bit more closely if we're going up and down the screen. And that should be good. We should have this circle here that's going to illuminate the bricks. But for 38, I'm going to do a scaling effect that is just going to make it go bigger and smaller. Let's just divide by 3 on the X and Y real quick. That could be a super quick scale down, and then maybe a longer scale up. How much time do I have? Okay, that took 2 minutes to set up. With the group, we now have this circle that is going to be scaling up and down. I'm going to change the timings on it because it looks a little bit odd. I don't really like it. And that's the beauty of the spawn order loop, is that you can just tweak the triggers to your leisure and you don't have to reset the loop every time. Then essentially I made another circle that's scaling up and down at a different speed. So sometimes they overlap. It's just another loop that I set up. It's on a different color. Now we should see the circles follow, and they're going to be scaling in their own way. Let's just scale down. And we can probably do something here. It's just another circle in the center, just to illuminate it a bit more. It's not the greatest effect, but we're going to do something with the bricks to make it cooler. Let's just take the group that it's on. 37. We're going to add a scaling effect where these go bigger and smaller. Let's just do an increase of 1.05. That should be enough to make it reach the point where all of these bricks make the background disappear. Almost. Okay, tiny bit more. 1.08. And then we can do another division that's going to be longer. My plans are to make saw blades that are just going to appear. They're going to show the background through them. I want to add more layers to the background itself behind the bricks, and then maybe one above. The circles go behind the bricks, which close in on them and make the background blank. So what I did is I copy pasted and made a low opacity version that always shows up on top. It makes the background more interesting, and we still get the effect that behind the bricks you get the brightest parts. The bricks are kind of blocking it off, and it's going to be a cool effect there. The scaling effect is so slow though. Let's just make it go like 0.25 and then a 0.5. I'm going to completely speed this up so the brick effect is pretty quick here. I think this looks pretty cool. I like the way it is. Just using gray blending for all of the detail, I made the quickest and coolest looking saw blades I could possibly think of in a short amount of time. I wanted to show the background behind them, so I made them pretty translucent with low opacity, but still visible enough to see. So we can copy paste. Number 9, that's going to make it fade in, but I don't want it to be completely invisible. I mean, this works. We can just use a bunch of saw blades. Now we're going to want to select the spiral. I'm going to want to do some arrows around here. Let's just use these. And I'll probably do some extra little movements that are going to be area move, just because that's a really efficient way to build now. Within 6 blocks of range, they're going to move a tiny little bit on a random angle. Just so I'm kind of interacting with the level. I should probably make it based on my X and Y. So now we'll play, and as we approach the arrows, they're going to just move a little bit, except that's way too far. Just move it way down. So it's just a tiny little nudge, you see? I actually love copy pasting so much. We just gotta go with number 4 here. That's gonna be a 0.05 and a 0.5. Fade out, it's gonna increase in brightness. That's why I didn't use opacity on the color channel, just so I can make a pulse like that. I used group 4 instead of channel 4, that's my bad. Let's see here. Boom. Okay, just make sure it's synced. Pretty neat. The background's showing up. It's following us. The bricks look good. I think I've done as much as I can for this section. I should probably transition it in properly. That should just be as simple as taking these circles and fading them on. So 46. Probably wasting the group by doing this, but that's what happens when you rush. I have no time. I'm just going to fade it on. And yeah, we're done. Transition fades on. Oh, it might be a little bit difficult to see where to go. I think I did pretty well to transition it and everything. We have the circle effect. We should turn off the ugly particles that are kind of floating here, but I think I did pretty good. This is a neat little effect here. I've just extended the gameplay a little bit. I'm going to put a little bridge where you have to go into the cube portal and you kind of just float on a platform like this, which is just going to be the same gray blending, a slightly lower brightness block on top. To improve the pulses that are here, I'm going to make them longer. And then I'm also going to add some pulses before that have longer fade times, just like this, 1.1 maybe. That's just going to hue up with color channel number 3 so that when we watch, we should see these circles change color slightly. Oh, that's an ugly color switch. Hold on, let me change it back the way instead. If you use small hue changes, you're likely to see good colors. But what you're likely to see with large hue changes is an ugly color combination. And I think it almost gets to that point. There we go. I'm gonna have a little section like this, which is just super neat. It's gonna use some invisible blocks, like the shiny ones, just for a little bit of texture here. Oh, it looks much better in the editor than it does in game. Oops. How can I fix that? Maybe if I just make them super bright on the bricks themselves. Put a giant D block to make sure we can slide in this wave. I'm probably gonna attach it to the player just by using an advanced follow. So let's go 47, player 1, and then we can just hide this thing and just remember that we're gonna have the sliding feature. So the mentality I'm building the back half of this level with is rush first and decorate later, which is definitely something that a lot of people do when building, and I think it's an interesting way to build because I have all my ideas down first, but now I'm looking at the level like, how can I improve it? I'm already looking at these giant player color particles that are just sitting here on top of the level for no reason. I'm looking at how can I improve my structuring? What can I add to this section to make it cooler? Because it's trippy, but the gameplay might not be as easily sight-readable as I would hope, right? Gotta remember to reuse this pulse so that the blocks get brighter. To get rid of the pesky particles, I'm just gonna place a background effect off trigger at the start. That gets rid of all of those, and this is much cleaner now. There we go, I can see more clearly. I'm actually just leave the section pretty simple like that, and just put pulsing objects in the blocks. Or objects like these. I think they would be pretty neat to have on the corners, stretched out perchance. If I set them to a specific degree of rotation, and then have another layer that's going to be slightly slower. And for the switch in the song that's coming up right at this portal, I'm thinking about doing a stop trigger right on the pulse triggers right here. So let's just do a group number 48 stop right there. So this pulse just ceases to exist. So the invisible blocks will still be there. Anything that we had additive brightness with, like the saw blades, with the details like this, they'll stay awake. What the? I'll probably control like a little fade out for group number 49 right after that. So the color channel changes first, and then you see it fade off, yeah. For the transition out, I would like to take these circles and just scale them up and away. Really just as simple as getting that group 50, doing an ease in transition of like 3 seconds and just multiplying by 100 like this. Let's just double check it, because the transition looked a bit odd if I didn't do this. Yeah, why not? A little bit slower would be good, just so you can kind of revel in it. Maybe even a cheeky little back in on the easing. Let's take a look here. So this should go smaller, and then, yeah, why not? Just shoot out to the edge of the screen. Okay, cool. So now we're going to work on the final part. My level Observe from way back did this vortex effect, and it was something that I was so obsessed with at the time. Kind of want to do something that's a little flip on that. I'm going to use this object. It's very useful. It's 2 lines in 1 object. I'm going to stretch it out, and then I'm gonna put it a little bit closer to the middle. I'm gonna set it to color channel number 3. I'll probably hue it backwards a little bit just so I can make more room in the pluses. Just go with a -15. I can set this in the middle of the screen. I can put group number 51 and just lock it. Let's just do that. We'll make a transition for it later because I have something in mind, but it's gonna take a little second to do it. I'm gonna kind of copy paste, and it's not gonna be a consistent warp, but I'm just gonna warp it so there's a little bit of a gap between. I'm going to decrease the brightness a little bit, go up by 5 in the hue, and then I should be giving these individual groups. So let's just start in the middle, go 52, and the bigger one can be group number 53. Okay, this loop on it looks so sick already. This gradient looks amazing. It's brightest in the middle, and it's going to get darker on the outside. Okay, it's getting a little bit difficult to continue this all the way out. I was hoping that I could fade it off all the way. I might just have to start accelerating the rate that I'm turning the brightness down. That one was a -0.06, and then this one can be a -0.08 or something. Cool. So we have this, and we have, I think, 20 groups, so we should have 20 objects, please. Yes, I did it right. Let's just start with what it's going to do on screen. We're going to start with group number 52, and we're going to do a -1 on the scale. It's going to be an ease in out like 2 seconds. Maybe even an exponential, because that's a bit more snappy with it. I'm going to copy paste and go for every single group number here. So they flip around one by one. Okay, so this is looking pretty neat. I'm thinking immediately of ways that I can improve this and make it more trippy. What people used to love to do is make a movement. I coined it the Wulzy Wiggle in my prime. So let's just give that a shot. We're going to move it up 10 in 1 second for every single layer. And then right as it's about to end, I'm going to do a -20, which is going to be twice as long. And then I'm going to do a +20 right after that. And these triggers are going to loop. So let's just spawn loop these, just like 3, spawn, multi. The 73 is going to start right here. And then I'm going to want it to repeat right here. Okay, cool. So we should have this rocking effect, just as long as this is spawn multied itself, where it's kind of going to change the focus away from the center of the screen and move it back into the middle. That looks so weird. Holy cow! This looks bizarre. Okay, we can definitely do some cool stuff with that. I kind of want to copy paste and do a 45-degree one that's on the side and then flip that as well. So we have this area in the center, which is going to have this amazing line effect on the side. This looks awesome. Transition well, we're going to have to set up 51 to be divided by 100 at the start with a toggle placed on it as well, just so it kind of comes out of thin air. When it appears, it's going to scale straight back up to its full size. And that's when the effects are all going to happen. Let's just set this up with 100. It's going to be an exponential out, so it's kind of like an explosion. We're going to put, I think, 2 seconds. So this transition is going to be a lot smoother. And then boom, we're going to have all of these lines come out of thin. I think I didn't activate the toggle, dude. How is this going to work here? Here we go. Boom. It's like a big explosion. And then we have these line effects going everywhere. We got to layer it behind the player for sure. Can this thing rotate? Group 74 is going to be used for a rotation here. That's just going to be continuous over the 20-second part that I think this is going to be. It's going to be like 5 times. Let's make sure we're doing our layering properly. So we should have an explosion of color. Boom. And then this whole thing is rotating, which is going to be so trippy. We're going to pass the background through slightly. Like it's going to be moving so slowly. And this effect should be totally locked in just to be in the background right there. And we can have it for the entire wave. No matter how far up or down we go, we have this insanely bright pattern going on. Let's set 51 to be a low opacity permanently, I think. Like a 75%, because it is a little bit too bright for my liking. This is probably the most insane background I've put in the level so far. But I love how the lines work here and they all go in different directions. It looks so cool. What I want to do is place a guide trigger up here. It kind of puts a box of glow around the screen. So let me just set up this little glow section, which is going to be on the top of everything. I'm going to make it match the edges. So I'm just going to go a little bit over the edge so it doesn't go completely black. But this is going to be on group 75. Guide in the center is group 76. 75 will fade on as we're going through this section. When I place this UI trigger, we're going to have the center as 76, which is that guide trigger, and then the group 75 will follow. So now when we play, we should see a vignette pop up around the edges, which is going to soften the edges of the screen right here and make this very dramatic. I think it looks cool. We're gonna have an object like this, which is gonna be black, and this is gonna be on B2. It should be fine. Should be layered above everything in the background. Yep. I'm gonna scale these up to like 3 times and just start using them for the obstacles in the level. I just realized that I put a slide block in here. We're probably gonna have to remove that, I'm not gonna lie. I'm just gonna put in massive slopes here. Wait, I gotta replace the D block, but with no movement. Okay, so we're gonna go up here, and then we have this giant background that's gonna follow us through this section. We're gonna have saw blades and stuff. It's actually going to be so cool looking, I think, when it's done. I think halfway through, I'm going to stop using these structures, and I'm going to do a mask instead. We can start blocking it up, and I'm going to put a little template of blocks like this. And now we can delete 6x6 squares and place in new structures where the background is going to show behind. I'm just trying to build a silly level that kind of captures the magic of old levels a bit. But I'll be honest, I have made this entire video in less than 24 hours. I'm just having fun building something simplistic. Put some saw blades in the level now. Gonna use that same group number 9 that I've been using all video for this like little area fade. What was that area move group that I added to the arrows in the middle section of the level? Here it is. It's number 45. All the arrows here are going to have that exact same group put on them. Oh, the saw blades are impossible to see. Hold on. Maybe they can have a different effect put on them. Let's just give them a new group 47 because we now have that available. I'm going to put an area scale down, and these are going to go from being absolutely gigantic to being tiny. So let's just put a giant length on these, like 20 blocks away. They're going to start shrinking. They're going to go back to their normal size by the time we get there. But that should help the saw blades feel a bit more intimidating. Yeah, this is great. Awesome. Because the song gets more intense, I did the same effect, but opposite for the mask at the end. So the squares and the slopes all go from being tiny to being their regular size. Okay, this is fine. I don't mind it. Now let's just put giant question marks in with some different hues like this. I'm going to take the last 15 blocks and just move them to the left so that the level technically ends here. I'm going to give them a group 78 and set them to be pushed over by a move trigger so that they can move into the end wall. Then everything in the level once again is going to fade off, and that's how simple it is. I've just made an entire effect level just like that. It's 1 minute and 25 seconds. I made the entire thing in one video. Very low effort at times, but I'm very proud of the concepts that I got done. I love the mix of colors that I did sometimes, especially with this purplish pink orange beam. I think this is a really cool repetitive concept. I did the time warp stuff that I don't normally do in levels, which was nice for me to experiment with. And then I made something clean with this ball section. This is probably my favorite part in the level, just because of what I did with the scaling details, the spiral, the way that the blocks look. Everything is super clean. This was the best vision I had with the level, in my opinion. This is kind of what I was thinking of before I even started recording. So I'm glad I got this executed the way that I wanted to. Then, for the second half of this level, I've just been freestyling. I built this section mainly in 10 minutes, just with the concept of the bricks and the circles, just getting that effect done. I used a lot of the same area fade with these saw blades and the arrows and everything. I didn't quite sync it perfectly because of the amount of copy paste that I did, but you know, I kind of just went with it and just continued even though the sync wasn't there, and just built whatever I felt like. And I ended up making something pretty decent. And I like the style switch at the end. I could have definitely done more with the masking and stuff, but I love the way that this effect looks in the background. I think I kind of ate overall, just with the way that I kind of switched things up. Did stuff outside of my usual comfort zone. I definitely layered the question marks wrong. That's really unfortunate. Did not test that at all. Oh, the background low-key breaks. Wait, I'm dumb. It's an easy fix. Just make sure that the mask doesn't fade off. Make sure that the question marks are going to be layered above. Okay, this is definitely rushed, but let's just see how I did with the ending. I did some fixes and stuff. This level has its strengths and its weaknesses. I think it's pretty funny to highlight some of the funny tropes of these levels back in the day when they just had plain block designs and just let the backgrounds do all the work. This transition could definitely be better, but now we have the question marks that are showing up, and we should have the end transition that is working. So here we go. Let's just see up here. We should just go into the wall, and everything fades off. Perfect. Check it out for yourself. It's called Classic FX Level 2025. Thank you so much for watching this Geometry Dash video. Plenty more to come. Gonna be going so hard this month before I retire from YouTube. Thank you for watching. Check the links in the description. Leave a like and subscribe, and have a good day.